Ladies and gentlemen, we are now resuming. This will be our 8th session, which is now going to be beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Future Summit. This is being brought to you by the Martin Dow Group, the Nutshell Group, and of course, our platinum sponsors, the Engro Corporation. Our 8th session today is titled as China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the Way Forward. And we have a brilliant lineup. This will be a moderated conversation. So please put your hands together to welcome the Head of Public Sector at the ACCA, Mr. Sajid Aslam. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two brilliant speakers who will be joining Sajid Saab for this conversation. Please welcome Hassan Aslam Shad. You are the Legal Director at CMS Cameron. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, you are the Special Assistant to the Prime Minister on CPEC Affairs and also a Minister of State. Please welcome His Excellency Khalid Mansoor. Khalid Saab, welcome to the Future Summit. A number of people have been perplexed, and there are all kinds of news that you see about the CPEC. It is definitely going to be a new lifeline for the economy of Pakistan, but a number of things need further deliberation and further clarity. So leave it to this able panel to cover it all. With this, Sajid Saab, the floor is all yours.
Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon, or good morning yet. It's still a good morning. So thank you very much for joining today. So I think the way we were trying to structure it is to get some updates and details from your side first, and then we will get some information and input from Hassan as well. So, and then we will come to the question answer if it's fine. So, sir, over to you if you can share some of the updates. Yep, so that would be great. And meanwhile, we will encourage the audience as well to really participate with their questions. So we will have a question answer session at the end, and that will really help us to really explore this topic in more detail and what you really need to know how to take it forward. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
If you can display my presentation, please. Excuse me. If you can display my presentation. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qala rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum. Well, first of all, thanks Nutshell Conferences for inviting me. So when I received invitation from Asfar and with the new leadership of Aman Saab, so I have never missed this conference because I believe it's a very good forum to share the ideas. But for the particular topic I will be speaking today, I thought it will be a good opportunity to disseminate what CPEC is all about. Because ever since I have taken up this assignment, there have been lots of negativity. CPEC, CPEC, and the progress in area and so on and so forth. So today I have put together a presentation that is going to give you a very comprehensive update, whatever has been achieved, and as the title says, where we stand as far as phase 2 was concerned. Please move on to the next one. Next slide, please. Yes. I think first of all, I would want everybody to understand that what are the key objectives of CPEC and what is the roadmap. I had the opportunity to be part of the delegation way back in 2013 when the discussion started between government of Pakistan and China. And you will recollect that was the time Pakistan had been going through the worst power crisis in the history. My colleague Bhatt is also sitting here. 12 to 18 hours of load shedding, and the economy of the country has virtually crippled. And when we started to compare, the GDP of Pakistan in the previous era used to be 6 to 7%, but it kept on eroding because power was not available. Secondly, whatever power was there, it was one of the most expensive because the choice of fuel in Pakistan was one of the best. Excuse me, if we can settle down, please. If we can settle down, please. Okay. So I said that the choice of fuel used to be one of the worst because in the energy fuel mix of Pakistan, almost 38 to 40% power generation was based on furnace oil. As I said, it's the most expensive choice of fuel, and also it is the imported one. So the cost of power was high, and it was causing our products in the export market most incompetitive, and also there was a balance of payment problem. Lastly, in order to correct the energy fuel mix, Pakistan needed to bring in coal because the coal is the most viable choice of fuel. And that was the time. Good to see, sir, to you, because he also played a part in really, helping the alleviating the crisis of Pakistan. So, we were just running from pillar to the post, what could be done. And Pakistan on one side was sitting on the 7th largest reserve of coal, which is Thar. There was no belief. And secondly, when we completed the technical and economic viability, it's important to give you this context. So no financial institution either in USA or Europe was available to fund this project. So cut long story short, we were part of the delegation, went there and told them that we needed Chinese help to really fund these kind of projects, and particularly development of Thar and bringing in choice of fuel as a coal. So they agreed, and a detailed framework was signed. And on the other side of the coin was that China also wanted to develop their ancient dream of Silk Route. And Silk Route was that they wanted to develop a corridor from the western part of China, which is Xinjiang, all the way to Gwadar. So with this kind of context, if you look at the key objective, I've just picked up the keywords. These are as follows, that the main objective was to promote bilateral and regional connectivity. And word here from China's perspective is the regional connectivity. Yes, there is a corridor which is going to largely benefit Pakistan, but from China's perspective, since their entire economy depends on trade, and their trade conventionally or even so far is happening through the eastern route, which is much longer and it's very expensive also. And now there is a couple of choke points over there. So they think for 40 years ahead of anybody, and that is where they wanted to develop that route. What they want to also achieve, the regional economic integration. Because once you have the connectivity, you will have the economic integration, and what it will basically do, it will provide investment, trade, and logistical cooperation. Now, the entire roadmap, as I mentioned, it is not going to be concluding very soon. It started in 2015 and it will continue all the way up to 2030. So it will decided into 3 phases. The first phase was defined as the early harvest project, that is basically coming from Pakistan because we wanted to alleviate the huge power crisis. And it was characterized at period of market cultivation, major bottlenecks to economic and social development addressed to boost economic growth. It was supposed to be completed by 2020, and we have essentially, alhamdulillah, achieved that. And I'll share with you what exactly we have achieved in this part of this roadmap. The medium-term objective is where we are right now, and it will continue until 2025, and it is characterized at period of expansion and development, and that is what is happening in phase 2. We are just transiting into phase 2, and it is going to be bringing the balanced regional economic development, but basically the 2 keywords are processing and manufacturing industry. That is what Pakistan needs. We need industry to alleviate the economic crisis and really, turn around our economics, inshallah. And obviously, if there is an industrialization in the country, it will provide huge people's livelihood, employment opportunity. The last period, from 25 to 30, it is called period of maturity. What it will do, it will establish the mechanism for sustainable economic growth, and CPEC is expected to play the leadership role. That's why you keep on hearing two things, that CPEC is the flagship of OBOR, the One Belt and One Road, and that is a kind of significance and importance CPEC has been getting. So in this slide, I have shown you that when this framework agreement was signed, it was a win-win situation. It is going to provide China the regional connectivity. It is going to provide China the opportunity for investment, trade, and logistical cooperation. But at the same time, there are huge benefits to Pakistan. And inshallah ta'ala, from my perspective, I believe it's going to be a game changer. Next, please. Now, very briefly, because time is short, I want to leave adequate time for question and answer. Let's review in the phase one. So if we look at the phase one, it is basically for Pakistan. Next slide, please. Oh, I can't see how. Okay, yeah. In the phase one, there were basically three. From the scope standpoint, there are three areas: energy crisis and how we can alleviate it. Transport and infrastructure, it is basically coming from China because they wanted to have the regional connectivity. And the third one was development of Gwadar, because that is what is characterized as jewel in the crown of CPEC. So if you look at the energy, 5,300 megawatt projects are completed. They are already up and running. From the transmission and distribution standpoint, for the first time, 660 kV transmission line has been laid. This is all the way from Matiari. Matiari is off-taking the power generation from Thar all the way to Lahore. And this is such a long line, and despite of long distance, because of the state-of-the-art technology, it is offering very, very insignificant transmission and distribution losses. Projects which are under implementation, they are across the country, but particularly there are two projects in Thar. At the moment, there are two projects which are up and running, and two are going to be completed within 6 to 9 months, 3,500 megawatt. So in 6 to 9 months, we will be adding 3,500 megawatt, and the project which are still in the planning stage, they are over 4,000 megawatt, but predominantly they are projects which are going to be friendly to the environment. These are the hydel project, these are the wind projects, and also solar projects. So now the question is that, what we will do with this kind of power generation in the country, because you see, if I recollect my position when I was still in the corporate sector, I was heading OICCI, and there are 192 multinational companies operating in Pakistan. So my question used to be, why more FDI was not coming? Because they have had such an excellent experience from the business standpoint. So their question was that one of their major pain point was that the grid did not have the power. But now, mashallah, we have power, and this is the time, as I keep on repeating, that industrialization should take place immediately. From the transport and infrastructure, 1,800 kilometers of new motorways, highways, and urban mass transport, which includes, Orange Line in Lahore, 820 kilometers of optic fiber. This is from Peshawar to Islamabad, and more is underway because this optic fiber installation is going to be all the way through the country. International airport at Gwadar is under construction, almost 26% completed. This is going to be the biggest airport in Pakistan, and any type of carrier will have the ability or flexibility to land over there. There are two more very important infrastructure projects, which is the railway line ML1, and that is the line which is going to be supporting the transportation from Peshawar all the way to Karachi. There were some hiccups, but in the last 3 months, a lot of progress has been made. And inshallah, I am very confident that very soon you will be hearing that it will be getting into execution. From the Karachi perspective, yet another very important project. In the last JCC, we have signed the MOU. This is called Karachi Comprehensive Coastal Development Zone, $3.8 billion project. This has been signed between KPT and one of the Chinese companies. So it will totally transform the Machar colony area. It is going to be a residential and commercial project. And right at the moment, we are getting into the development stage. But once it is going to be implemented, that part of the Karachi is going to be totally transformed. Next, please. Now, we talk about the industrial cooperation. So this corridor, which is going to be all the way from Kashgar to Gwadar, So as he said that there is going to be huge, you see, road network which is already completed or very soon they will be completed. So for the industrialization you need the special economic zones. So there are in total 9 special economic zones and 1 free zone in Gwadar under the auspices of CPEC. At the moment we are focusing on 4, 1 each in each province, which is Rashakai in KP, which is going to, next one please, keep on changing as I say. If you can show me from where I should, because it is all erased over here. Back. Okay, got it. Okay, 1 each in each province and then the free zone in Gwadar. So extremely strong interest both from local and international investors have already been shown. I remember that in the last 3 months, more than 24 ambassadors from various countries they have visited, and there was a misconception that CPEC is only China-centric, whereas it is not. As I told you before, that from Chinese perspective, it is a regional connectivity, and they are really welcoming any of the international investor to come to Pakistan, be it from Europe or North America. But if we look at what kind of investment other than China has taken place, it is the companies which are from UK, from Netherlands, from Germany, and so on and so forth. So they have chosen Allama Iqbal Industrial City as the choice of their special economic zone. But the message I want to give over here, that special economic zone is open to all the investors from all over the world. So in the later part of this month, we are planning to arrange an international conference, and I would like to then disseminate that what CPEC is all about, what kind of fiscal incentives are there, and we will also tell them that their investors are welcome to come and invest in any of the special economic zones. Oh shit. It's not moving. Okay, now phase 2. This is the phase 2 which we have just transited, and before embarking on to this particular one, we wanted to have a vision, and I will quickly read this vision statement. It says that accelerate socio-economic development of Pakistan by bringing industrial, technological and agriculture revolution through Chinese investment and transfer of technology. So the key drivers of this vision are going to be twofold. The industry which is going to provide the import substitution, and the industry which is going to be focusing on export orientation, because these are the 2 pillars which inshallah are going to transform our economy. So there are various sectors which are going to be pursued with the Chinese and international investors, and let me mention a very brief relationship. The way industrialization in China took place, it is basically the evolution of industry. When we look at North America and Europe, so when industry really transits into high-tech, then labor-intensive industry becomes unviable. And when this situation happened in Europe and North America, China offered its land. So they came up with a set of fiscal incentives. They have mentioned that there are going to be special economic zone, etc. So if you look at China, I would mention to you that there is hardly any big company which does not have their manufacturing facilities over there. So that is what we would like to replicate, and we have already identified the industries which are going to be absolutely ready for the relocation to Pakistan, and that will be done through creating a leverage with the various entities, be it special the private companies, the financial institution, and state-owned enterprises. I will go quickly. I was told that there are only 3 minutes, but I think it is, yeah, okay. Well, I don't know how it works, Yeah. Okay. I don't know how, there's some problem with this one. It has just destroyed everything. ये कुछ नहीं, आगे से पीछे 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 और पीछे और पीछे और पीछे और पीछे. Yeah. So this is the slide, since time is very short, it is basically mentioning that if the Chinese trade is to be routed from western part, that would mean, from west part of the China all the way to Gwadar, there is going to be a significant saving in time. And if you just focus onto the last column, which is the saving of 21 to 24 days, and it is from the Xinjiang all the way to Gwadar, and if it were to really follow from the existing route, then from the western part of the China, it has to come to Shanghai, and Shanghai to the various ports, whether it is port of Salalah, Jeddah, and Kuwait, and Rotterdam, and Hamburg, etc. So what it will do, that when the trade will start, it will substantially benefit the transportation time and serving international clients very quickly, and sizable saving in the cost. Next, please. I don't know yet. यार कोई सही प्रॉपर ही लगा देते आप यहीं खड़े रहेंगे. या यही वाला जैसे बात वाला. This. So this is one which is indicating the routes, which is through the road network and through the sea. And again, you will notice that this access is going to be covering 3 continents, 68 countries, 1/3 of the world GDP, and 62% of the global population. And the trade will also be able to really get routed from the various special economic zones all the way to the landlocked countries, and also to Russia and Europe, etc. And again, as I said, it's going to be saving the time and also, the cost. Now, in order to have a competitive analysis, next one please. Yeah. This is indicating that how our labor costs are competitive. And this chart is showing that if we compare ourselves with China, our labor cost is less than, 2 times of what China, labor cost is. Because China has not transited into the high-tech technology like Huawei of this world, so that is providing an important information to the investor that come to Pakistan, because we have labor which is more than 2 times cheaper than them. Next, please. Very young labor, and this chart is indicating that almost 80% of our population is below the age of 40. And when we look at the availability of skill set, more than 65% of our population, they have any kind of skill set, and especially the export-oriented industry. If I were to mention whether it is IT or textile, we have got labor which are available. And with these kind of 2 competitive analysis, we would be able to really persuade, and that is the approach we are doing. This is the one, next one please. This is one case I just wanted to show. Look at this textile. Pakistan is agricultural country, but when we look at historically, we have just focused on to exporting either corn, gin cotton, or cotton yarn. But the value-added stuff is not been focused at all. And if you look at the last column, this is our contribution to the international export of Pakistan. It is less than 2%. So these value-added stuff are going to be the track suits which you wear, the shirts, and you see the linen and the towels and so on and so forth. So if such kind of industry is going to be relocated, it is anybody's imagination that how export orientation would be achieved and how the economy is going to be favored. Next one, please. We have got the phase 2 of China-Pakistan Free Trade Agreement. It is going to be providing a lot more access to Pakistani product to get transferred to China or get exported to China. So I just wanted to show you the opportunity is there for the local manufacturers under the influence of Free Trade Agreement Phase 2, and it will keep on providing the access to the local labor at zero rate, at 0 rate. Next one is just showing where these special economic zones are. The one which are shown in blue, these are the ones which are currently being focused, one each in one province. And on the extreme end of the map, towards the south side, this is the Gwadar Free Zone. And that is where, we are ensuring that these special economic zones are absolutely ready, and they are providing a plug-and-play type of environment. Now, quickly, just to mention that what kind of special economic zones we have. Allama Iqbal, about 3,200 acres. It is absolutely ready, and host of investment opportunities are there, be it textile, pharmaceutical, food processing, engineering, electrical and electronics, chemical paint, etc., etc. And as we speak, the fundamental utilities requirement have already been made available over there. Then we move on to Rashakai, which is in KP 1,000 acres. And again, you know, there are lots of business opportunities and utilities are already there. Next one is Bostan in Quetta. 1,000 acre, 200 acre have already been developed. And again, the industry which suits that environment and, you know, the kind of produce which could be done over there. This is yet another special economic zone which is available. And the second last is the Dhabeji, and this is one of the preferred one by the Chinese investors because it is merely 11 kilometers from the coast. And here also 1,500 acres have been allocated. It was stalled due to various reasons, but now you see the development is about to start in a month or so. Last one is the Gwadar, and I would just spend 10 seconds. This is considered as a jewel in the crown because of the D seaport and also extremely strategically located. In the phase 1, we had 60 acres. It is all gone. You know, all the land has been allocated by the host of industries. There are 46 enterprises who have registered, and out of those, 10 and 11 are working. I have been there 3-4 times. I've seen the industry working over there. But looking at the huge interest and the real destination for the relocation of the industry, the phase 2 has been inaugurated last year. It is over 2,200 acres, and that is where, you know, we are focusing. We have prepared a very competitive analysis for such industry which could be relocated, and now virtual approach has already taken place from the textile manufacturer, from pharmaceutical, from agriculture producer, and so on and so forth. And inshallah ta'ala, given that excellent fiscal incentives which are available, particularly for Gwadar Free Zone, 23 years of tax holiday is going to be made available. So here you will see, and you will also notice that the relocation of the major industry will take place to Pakistan, inshallah. The next slide is showing a comparative analysis, and Pakistan fiscal incentives are compared with the other destination where China is either investing or relocating their industry, whether it is India, Bangladesh, China, Vietnam, and Cambodia. So in terms of tax incentive, in terms of import of equipment and machinery and the raw material, Pakistan fiscal incentives are equal or better than these destinations. I had my meeting with the ambassador very, very frequently, and what he categorically mentioned that the fiscal incentives are better than other destinations, but what need to do because the sense of urgency is not there. So the ball is in our court. There are 10 joint working groups where the agreement has been made with the China that what projects are to be implemented, but we need to go through the development and execution. So with this kind of stuff, there are 3, latest joint working group which have been formed, and these are the ones which are going to be supporting our economy, science and technology, agriculture and information technology. So the projects have already been defined, and now, as I said, that it all depends on us that how quickly we develop and then take them to the execution. Second last slide, the security. And security has been the major concern of the Chinese. But I was directly responsible in developing $5 billion project, my responsibility at Angro and then HUBCO. And I tell you, the way the security has been headed by Pakistan Army, I think I don't have words to really praise them. And let me mention that all the projects which have been taking place in a kind of closed environment, not even a single security incident took place. The 2 incidents which you have been hearing, those are the incidents which took place which are outside. The Chinese people have been either, traveling and all that. After that, a revision has been taking place to make sure that there's going to be foolproof security available. A special cell has been created in the Ministry of Interior, and from Gwadar standpoint, both Pakistan Army and Navy, they are taking the lead in coordination with the other, security agencies in Pakistan. Now, in order to fully facilitate the investors, there are 2 things which happen. In CPEC authority, there is a facilitation center which is already up and running. And the other complaint which I have received, that any investor who has to come to Pakistan, either in province or any of the special economic zone, he would need almost 37 approvals and NOCs. So there was a need to change the Special Economic Zone Act. And I'm happy to report that only last week those changes were proposed to the cabinet, and cabinet have approved that. The regime is going to be changed. It's going to be the compliance regime, and also the management company of each and every special economic zone, they will be legally empowered, and they will be made responsible to get all sorts of approval for the Chinese investor. So thank you very much, and I will just say with one, words from our famous poet, and it says that all we need just to pray for the country that we really make Pakistan prosperous. कि खुदा करे कि मेरी अर्ज़े पाक पर उतरे, खुदा करे कि मेरी अर्ज़े पाक पर उतरे, वो फसले गुल जिसे अंदेशाए ज़वाल ना हो, यहाँ जो फूल खिले वो खिला रहे बरसों, यहाँ ख़िज़ां को गुज़रने की भी मजाल ना हो, खुदा करे कि ना खम हो सरे वक़ार वतन और इसके हुस्न को तशवीश माह साल ना हो. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khalid sir. Thank you very much. Based on the audience feedback, we have extended a little bit time for this session, and we will encourage people to really prepare their questions. So we will be taking some questions after Hassan's session. So we would like a very interactive session here. I'm sure there are a lot of questions which people would like to ask. So we are there to make sure that this dialogue really add value to knowledge as well as the next interventions which you feel government should be doing. So over to Hassan for a quick session. Right.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be attending the Future Summit with you all today. Mr. Khalid Mansoor, the Special Assistant to the Prime Minister on CPEC Affairs, has given a very enlightening talk on CPEC, where it stands today. And I think he has made it very easy for me because I will be skipping a few slides that I had prepared. He has covered all those areas. So firstly, you will have to bear with my sore throat. I hope I don't lose my voice before I finish my presentation. Firstly, a few words on why I'm here today. I will be giving a 360-degree SWOT analysis and an overview of the shared experiences, the international best legal practices and the legal recommendations in the context of China's Belt and Road Initiative, and how those international best legal practices, legal recommendations and shared experiences can be utilized in the context of the CPEC. So the idea of my talk and my presentation is going to be to drive home some of the lessons that have been learned in the context of the Belt and Road Initiative, because the Belt and Road Initiative is like a meta-narrative. It's a paradigm, and CPEC is only a constituent part of that paradigm. So firstly, a few words on the importance of the CPEC. The CPEC has been described multifariously as the crown jewel of the BRI, a game changer, and one of the projects that will change the destiny of Pakistan, and there is absolutely no doubt about that. Because we must never forget that before the advent of the CPEC, Pakistan had been faced with two perennial issues. One of them was energy security issues, and the other one was poor infrastructure. So in a way, think about the CPEC as having provided Pakistan with the baseline infrastructure support that was lacking. So it was like the initial big push that Pakistan needed in order for Pakistan to move forward and to welcome foreign investment. And we must thank the Chinese for this. They have given momentum to Pakistan's economy, and as Mr. Khalid Mansoor mentioned, CPEC Phase 2 indeed promises to change Pakistan's destiny. Quickly, I will touch upon the objectives of CPEC Phase 2. The most important aspect of CPEC Phase 2 is that it will lead to sustainable economic development in Pakistan. It will lead to industrialization, it will lead to poverty reduction, and it is also going to be the vehicle for Pakistan to have broad trade, agriculture, and socio-economic development. The latest trends in BRI, and this is where I'm going to be talking about the international best legal practices and shared experiences. Let's not forget that just like CPEC has entered phase 2, similarly BRI is also going through what is known as BRI 2.0. This is a term that was coined by Christine Lagarde from the IMF. And this basically is the second phase of the BRI. This will be focusing on improving people's lives, poverty alleviation, respecting the laws and regulations of participating countries like Pakistan, and sustainable growth and economic development. Now, a best international practice that has recently emerged in the context of the BRI, which I will be talking about, is the shared approach. This is very important. The shared approach is a term that was used by President Xi Jinping of China in 2019. The idea behind the shared approach is basically to resolve differences and disagreements and to manage them and to stop them from becoming disputes. To its credit, the government of Pakistan has undertaken lots of positive steps in furtherance of a shared approach. The examples are the CPEC Joint Cooperation Committee, which is the highest body at a state level between Pakistan and China. Similarly, we have the Pakistan-China Business Investment Forum, and thirdly, we have the CPEC Business Council. Now, having said all this, as I said, CPEC promises to transform Pakistan's economy. There are some issues that we need to look at, and this is where I will be touching upon some of the international best practices and legal experiences. The first one is the bureaucratic guillotine. And I use the word guillotine very carefully because, unfortunately, the bureaucracy of Pakistan in the past has stymied a number of important initiatives like the CPEC. So Pakistan, in my view, has two choices. Either it must reform the bureaucracy, or if the reform of the bureaucracy is not possible because of political reasons, then Pakistan must immediately remove all the bottlenecks in the bureaucracy that impede the functioning of the investment regime in Pakistan. Now, I get to the Pakistan's domestic legal framework. Now, before considering foreign investment, every foreign investor does what is known as a legal due diligence. The purpose of the legal due diligence is to understand the legal regime of the host country, to understand the legal risks that may be there, and to navigate around those risks. Now, in its international practice, my firm CMS has done global studies on Belt and Road Initiative projects in 6 different regions around the world. And the purpose of these studies was to highlight and understand what are the core concerns being expressed by Chinese and the non-Chinese participants in BRI. Now, interestingly, one of the biggest concerns that have been noted by all the participants of these surveys across the globe, Chinese and non-Chinese, has been legal frameworks or domestic legal systems. Now, as a practitioner of international law, I also note with a heavy heart that one of the biggest concerns that international investors face in Pakistan is Pakistan's domestic legal structure and the fact that there is ambiguity in the law and the laws are not enforced all the time. Now, the first issue under Pakistan's legal regime is what I would like to call lack of a judicial resolution. Now, what do I mean by judicial resolution? What I mean is that there are broad discretionary powers vesting in the Pakistani courts. It's a result of Pakistan's constitution. Now, in the past, the Pakistani courts have rendered some international agreements null and void, despite that those international agreements had a foreign governing law and arbitration clause. Now, this is something that you don't normally see in other jurisdictions. The effect of such judicial decisions is to discourage international investment in the country. Let's remember one thing, that international contracts rest on a sovereign pillar. No foreign investor would come to a country where the country has a reputation for not honoring its international commitments. And this is something that needs to change. Now, what do I propose to do when it comes to judicial resolution? Now, considering that the judiciary derives its powers from the Constitution, the two options that come to my mind are that the Pakistani judiciary should be encouraged to enter into judicial cooperation agreements with other countries. The purpose of these judicial cooperation agreements would be to enable Pakistan's judiciary to understand the legal trends that exist in different countries, to also work out different enforcement issues, and to reach some sort of a common ground. Because we don't want to have situations where international contracts are rendered as void by Pakistani courts, because, as I said, these things do impact Pakistan's reputation abroad. The second option that Pakistan has, which I think it's about time that we do it, is to sensitize the Pakistani judiciary about the sanctity of international contracts and the fact that a number of disputes, international disputes, are now resolved through arbitration. And arbitration laws exist in all countries. Pakistan also has an arbitration law. I will quickly touch upon that. But the judiciary needs to understand that unless and until Pakistan is in line with international requirements, Pakistan will not be able to have a resolution of this issue. The next is legal capacity building. Pakistan has some brilliant lawyers. There is no doubt about that. I've come across some brilliant young lawyers and brilliant legal minds. But unfortunately, there is a dearth of skilled lawyers who are well versed in the details and the requirements of international transactions. One thing that should be done by the state is to encourage the reform of the legal sector. Legal education should be reformed, because as CPEC enters into phase 2, the requirements for Pakistan also will increase, and our lawyers need to up their game to be able to advise the government of Pakistan and other private investors and entities on the requirements under the CPEC phase 2 contracts. We also need an enactment of robust laws at the federal and provincial levels. Mr. Khalid Mansoor mentioned that recently a law has been issued in Pakistan, which is a positive step. Now, let's not forget that when Pakistan enters into an international contract, the understanding is that Pakistan has all the means to implement that law all the way down to the provincial level. So a contract entered by Pakistan means it is automatically going to be enforced to the very grassroots level. So Pakistan should do analysis of its existing laws, or if Pakistan has existing laws, then those laws need to be made robust so that we can comply with all our obligations under CPEC phase 2. Now, lastly, I come to international dispute resolution. There are broadly two types of disputes that can arise under the CPEC. One is investor-state dispute, which is covered under bilateral investment treaties, and the second are private disputes between two or more commercial parties. Now, the purpose of a bilateral investment treaty is to give some protections to the foreign investor in the host country. Some of these protections are, for example, fair and equitable treatment, and a protection from expropriation or nationalization of the assets of the foreign investor. Now, there is talk in Pakistan about the termination of some bilateral investment treaties. This is a sovereign decision for Pakistan to take, and I'm no one to comment on that. But if Pakistan does indeed terminate any bilateral investment treaties, then Pakistan will have to think of offering other sweeteners to international investors. And when I say sweetener, I mean some additional incentives to foreign investors so they consider Pakistan as a destination. So this can be done through a arbitration law. Unfortunately, Pakistan does not have a current arbitration law. The only law that we have is dated 1940, and it does not have any detailed rules. So if any investor is coming to Pakistan and they don't have the protection of bilateral investment treaties, so they will naturally ask questions as to what are the protections given in Pakistan to those foreign investors. So lastly, I come to innovation. Yes, absolutely. So last point is innovation and privatization of justice. Quickly, there have been international developments whereby mediation is one of the most upcoming dispute resolution methods. Pakistan and China's relationship is not merely strategic, not merely commercial, it has strategic dimensions to it. This is one of the most important relationships that Pakistan has with any country. And what I would propose is that in addition to litigation and arbitration, Pakistan should have an overarching mediation framework with China. What that will do is it will preserve the relationship between the two countries, and mediation is also an excellent cultural fit for Pakistan and China. I'm out of time, so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I look forward to interacting with you later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this is our opportunity. I'll just set the scene first, and I'll put some questions there, but we will encourage audience to come up with a question. Meanwhile, we have support available who can provide you a mic. You can state your name and organization, and then you can do that question. So I'll set the scene. I'll ask initial few questions, and then we will come to the questions, right? Just to give you the background, I think Khalid Saab and Hassan both have provided you a certain context. Just to look at the BRI starting 2013, by December 21, it has got 142 MOUs signed under the BRI. So right now we are talking about 142 countries which are part of this project. Investment size of $3.7 trillion, and there are 4.6 billion people who are going to be connected through that BRI project. And there's among them, they have got almost 6 trillion worth trade. But again, coming back to the CPEC, CPEC is still considered a flagship project, and that would be the first testimonial for the success of BRI. And that's the importance of the CPEC, and that's where we are. BRI is not the only initiative. Recently, last June, US also announced the Build Back Better World, BQW or B3W, as a project in G7 Summit. And that's also talking about the infrastructure development, a value-driven, high-standard and transparent infrastructure partnership. At the same time, EU has also announced the Global Gateway Initiative, which is a $340 billion, which they have already committed for that kind of project. So the one thing which is very clear that the China started in 2013, the world is now realizing that kind of projects and the connectivity is required to really help economic development, develop that infrastructure and connect that world. Trade has been historically the most important route or the tool to develop the relationship between the countries. And the trade agreements, that's what we call it in journal, these trade agreements are the pivotal to really create those relationships and provide all the protections which Hassan was talking about as well. Now, these really enter in their countries. So I think these are the bare minimum, very simplistic examples that what standardization is required and why that coordination is the most important thing. There are few concepts or the misconceptions which we would like to clarify with Khalid Saab first, and then we will come to the legal framework later. And meanwhile, we will expect certain questions. There's a lot of people who are asking the question that the investment which is coming from China under CPEC or BRI, it's a debt. And is it a debt trap? Do we have any evidence? Because we are not the only one in that one. Do we have enough evidence that it's not, or do we have evidence it is? So what it is all about. So what kind of funding we are getting from China? It's grant or loan, or it's a debt, on what terms? So any briefing, any explanation around the debt side of it?
Okay, well, first of all, I think this concept is absolutely incorrect, that the investment in CPEC has ceased or it's slowed down. Because I have just shown you that only in the phase one, almost $25 billion projects have been implemented. Either they are up and running, and in next 6 to 9 months they will be up and running. $28 billion projects are already envisaged. These are in the development phase. And you would recollect I mentioned that close to 4,000 plus megawatt of renewable energy projects, they are almost finalized and they are getting into the implementation. So now, this is just the phase one. And overall in phase one, the number which was thought about in 2013, 14 and 15, that was 53 billion. And out of that, as he said, that 25 billion is already implemented, and the majority of it is a very, very attractive loan by China. And, there are lots of details. And since, I have worked in various projects which were able to get loan either from North American lenders or European lenders, the average loan, because there was a lot of, you see, I would say misstatement, sometime by media as well, that these are very expensive loans. These are not. And if I were to average them without, speaking lots of jargon, it is close to, less than 2%. So now phase 2, in phase 2, there are, 10 joint working groups. There are multiple projects in each and every sector of Pakistan. And we are trying to create an environment which is a win-win situation, even for China's industry sustainability from the long-term standpoint. Because majority of their industry is the export-oriented, and Pakistan is so strategic, either from the road network or through the sea route, and I'm sure that more and more investment will keep on coming. The framework for arranging the loan or debt from China, you see, Sino-Shore is there, which provides both, you see, commercial and political risk undertaking, and then China Development Bank, one of the biggest bank in China. So I'm telling you from my personal experience that 5 billion loan which I negotiated with them, those were kind of, dispersed, and I'm sure as we go along, this should not be any bottleneck.
Thank you, sir. Another question which keep coming back is the protection of the local industry, where we stand in terms of the local industry, if we are giving incentives to the Chinese investor, so the people who have got their investment for here, like for last 40, 50 years, so what does it mean for them? Can they participate, number one? And number two, how we will create the ground which is equal for everybody?
Okay, there are two things. First of all, special economic zone and the set of incentives I have shown, they're second to none if we compare ourselves with the regional countries. So there is no restriction that any local investor cannot come and take a land in any of the special economic zones. So just to mention that I have been visiting all the special economic zones. So in Faistabad there are two zones, one is M3 and the Allama Iqbal. So more, local investors have taken the land, but unfortunately they just take the land and then, no activity has been started over there, which is not correct. Because if you take the loan, take the land, and you just keep it over there, it is really restricting the other investors also to do that. Secondly, I give the example that I wanted to put up the $2 billion project in Pakistan, and there were a number of opportunities. I could have done it myself under the prevalent policy available, or do it through, you see, a joint venture relationship. Went to China, did the, a kind of searching over there, and finally decided that we have chosen China Power, which is the 4th largest SOE of China. So they came to Pakistan, and it is one of the most successful joint venture. So all the opportunities which I have mentioned, Sajid, I will be focusing that creating some kind of joint venture relationship. But again, there is no restriction. If any of the local incentives would like to come and establish their business in the special economic zone, those fiscal incentives are available to them with all sorts of facilitation. So in my office, other than Chinese, there are many local investors, they come, and whatever bottlenecks are there, we will be providing them the facilitation.
Thank you, Khalid Saab. And I think Khalid Saab raised a very interesting question. The area is the joint venture side of it. I think that's the way to go, where the local business has got a local presence and infrastructure and the access, and the Chinese investor may have the knowledge and the technology and access to customer for export, and they can form the joint venture. And Hassan, question for you.
If I may interject over it. The latest initiative, I was amazed that the typical trade war which is taking place between US and China has already announced that by 2030, the silicon chip they import from USA, they will be self-sufficient. Yeah. Okay? 2-3 investors have come, and they said that if, for instance, there are going to be any kind of embargo, given that you see trade war, they want to relocate their manufacturing facility in Pakistan. So guess what they have mentioned, that Mr. Mansoor, create a kind of vocational and training institute. In the next 1 year, we would be needing 100,000 talent of Pakistan. So sky is the limit. I think agar kisi cheez ki kami hai, that is something, we have to really, get out of our cocoons and really make use of this opportunity.
So I think execution is the one of a key area. It's not the lack of opportunity. I think it's lack of imagination right now, and then really bringing that imagination to reality. That's what we are looking for. And light
Sorry
engineering.
for one more interjection. You know, what you mentioned that, yes, you know, bureaucracy is there, and people like me and Aftab Bhatt is sitting here, we have lived with that one. So that hurdle is not going to be changing in the near foreseeable future. However, when I took up this assignment, you know, I'm very encouraged. There are 2-3 forums which are made available to me. First of all, that all the execution agencies are the ministries, right? My job is to provide the facilitation and create a linkage between the investor, be it local, be it Chinese. Now, the important forum which have been created, and I'm sure, you know, that will be so much encouraging for all of you, that if there are going to be any policy related issues, that investment is there, but the main hurdle is the policy. So we have got, you see, Cabinet Committee on CPEC, and there's a very strong membership over there, and the chairman is Mr. Asad Umar, who is the planning minister also. So we take, you know, those issues over there, and the decisions are taken. Okay. And then my job is to really follow. If there are going to be any operational relating issues, then China-Pakistan Relationship Steering Committee, and in which there are representation from all the provinces. Last but not the least, there is yet another forum, which is the Prime Minister House, and at least you see a lot of encouragement has been given, and after 15 days there are reviews, and if you are unable to resolve the issues or red tapeism as you mentioned, then you know those issues are taken to the Prime Minister. These are the forums available. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Hassan, the question which I was trying to pose is that the joint venture, and when we are talking about the joint venture and we are talking about the people, the cross-border agreements, and particularly where we are following the English law and China has got their own legal structure. So how those joint ventures should be legally structured, and how that arbitration and the dispute resolution and some of the clauses you were talking about, that's a one thing. And now we are going to be a part of those 142 countries because it's a BRI project. So what is the best practice to really standardize and create a legal framework which can really help us to implement those contracts across multiple jurisdictions?
Right. The first thing is that when it comes to any international contracts, you have to fall back on the nature of the transaction. So everything will vary from transaction to transaction. When you enter into a contract, before that you have negotiations that take you towards that contract. So you need to be represented by someone who knows the law, somebody who's savvy with the commercial terms, somebody who can represent you adequately and protect your legal interests. The second is having certain clauses in the contracts which are pretty much standard. You need to have certainty in the contract. It should not be vague. The obligations, duties, and rights of the parties need to be spelled out with clarity, and you take it from there. Now, when it comes to dispute resolution clauses, it really is something, again, that is up to the parties. As I mentioned earlier in my speech, and I could not finish because I was running short of time, one thing that Pakistan should be putting into its contracts should be considering is having a overarching mediation framework in its contracts. And the reason why I say that is because this is not any other relationship. This is a very deep and very important pivotal relationship for Pakistan. This is literally Pakistan's lifeline. What the Chinese have done for Pakistan is simply unprecedented. And as Mr. Khalid Mansoor mentioned, there is a lot of propaganda going into this, lots of fake news, trying to discredit, our relationship. But to preserve it even further, we need to have an overarching mediation network, which is going to be a great cultural fit for Pakistan and China both. And this will also be in line with the shared relationship that I mentioned earlier. The shared experiences, because both parties are going to be trying to manage their differences. So just to summarize, it depends from contract to contract. You need to have adequate representation and mediation to preserve the relationship.
Let me add my personal experience.
Sure.
You see, whenever any investment is done or there's a joint venture agreement, so under the joint venture agreement, each sponsor protects their right, and it is very clearly written that how they will be proceeding. So as per the contract, there are certain areas where you see the remedy is there within the contract, which is called the dispute resolution mechanism. But then in the contract, you see, and I have done some joint venture agreements, then the other parties say that if there is going to be an issue where from the local mediation it could not be resolved, then which destination they will choose. Either it is going to a London Court of International Arbitration, Singapore, and so on and so forth. So when we were negotiating latest agreements with China, so they agreed that, we will try to resolve the issues through dispute resolution mechanism within the country, and if we are unsuccessful, then we will choose London as the London Court of International Arbitration.
Thank you. And one point I would like to mention is that in China, you now have this court known as the International Commercial Court. It offers hybrid services of arbitration, mediation, and dispute resolution. Think of it as a one-stop shop where you can go and resolve your disputes. And it's a very high-profile court. It has all the judges are very well experienced and well versed in private international law. This court is another venue for dispute resolution that I believe Pakistan should consider. And again, it will also build trust even further, because when you are going to agree to a court in China, that just shows that because of your stellar relationship with China, you are even willing to consider a dispute resolution in their own territory.
Thank you, Hassan. And now we open the forum for questions. Can we have Mike? And can we start from the left side there? My left side. Can we have Mike there, please? So please do state your name and organization, and try to have a one question so we can have opportunity for other people as well.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Nihal Qasim and I represent a company called Qasim Investments. My question is for Khalid Saab. Thank you for a very good presentation. And building up on local industry protection, when we replace businesses from outside the SEZ to inside the SEZ, are we not replacing taxpayers with non-taxpayers, local investors with foreign investors? Are we not delaying fiscal deficit and current account deficit issues when those profits are repatriated?
So if I understand correctly, it's around the special economic zones. It's around the special economic zones that the incentives will be available to the organization when they build it and they start contributing towards the tax one.
You see,
local
industry. No, I think the question is that Pakistan needs FDI. And we are encouraging them to come to Pakistan unless there is an incentive given to them which are available in rest of the world also. Then how on earth we will be able to really persuade them to come? So as I said that in these special economic zones, the opportunity is available for the local investors as well. So if they would like to invest and take the benefit of such, fiscal incentives, that is available to them. So it's a level playing ground for anybody.
Khalid Saab, I absolutely agree, and I'm not the advantages. Issue is what happens to those longer competitive with people inside the SEZ. Do they relocate? If they relocate, they become non-taxpayers for Pakistan. If the foreigners come in, they start repatriating. We already have
Yeah, it is the individual choice. Because I know in Faisalabad, I was in Faisalabad, there were people, they said that we would like to relocate. So there is a procedure to do that, and if their business as it is profitable, and they think that it's sustainable, so there are two choices. Either they relocate and then go through the motion, or that would mean shut down the base business and go over there, or start the new business. So we really can't say that how they are going to be deciding. It all depends on the individual choice and decision.
Thank you. And next question.
Batsab.
Okay, here please.
Can we have more than one mics?
I think we have
so many people.
So I'll come back to you.
Thank you very much. Very well, very good presentation. I have one comment and one question from the legal side. We have sort of, in terms of legal structure, because I have also handled one of the biggest arbitration, and in terms of even if you have won the case in the international court, the implementation is even a bigger challenge. So the really approach of the government towards the decision making in respect of the contract in substance from inside heart, that is extremely important. No matter what law you introduce, it's not going to help. So that is a big question. Second question, the thing is, we also lack ADRs. Our courts are choked, and the cases are pending for like years. So there is a term of alternate dispute resolution, which I think should be introduced in Pakistan, and I would like to have your comment on it. Sure. And a small comment, Khalid sir, that's more on power. You know, we have recently heard that China has stopped more investment on the coal side. And our third side, you would know better that it is fully not sort of evolved and it might require further investment in terms of helping our fuel side. So what do you think the impact of the new world approach towards the environment, which should be respected, but beggars under the choosers, we don't have much of a choice. So what do you think the future of the third on it?
But sir, you see, good question. Well, first of all, let me clarify one thing. When Xi Jinping's announcement came that no more investment offshore in coal, so I immediately qualified that the project which have already been approved, so they are either in the early harvest project, and most important one is the 300 megawatt imported coal project in Gwadar, because if you don't have power, you can't industrialize. So this clarification was done that whatever projects have already been approved, China will continue to support that. Now, I was one of the biggest proponent of THAR, because the THAR success lies, and I could see Shah Sahab over there, it's scalability, right? So, you know, there are 2 projects which are up and running, 2 are going to be completed, that is where, you know, HAPCO did it. And then there are 2 more projects, one Lucky and one is going to be Siddiq Sir. Now, how on earth we will be able to now, you know, scale up? I'm talking about one block. Also on the other block, you have Shanghai Electric, which will be commissioning in next 3 to 4 months. So there are 3-4 projects which were envisaged and ratified in Joint Cooperation Committee, which happened 2 months back. What will be happening that in order to achieve the scalability, what scalability does, that it reduces the cost of coal per ton and then the cost of power, no brainer, right? Now what would happen, that there is a project which I am personally spearheading that will allow the transportation of coal first to Port Qasim, to really support the 660 megawatt Lucky power, and then also up north. You will be amazed to know that Pakistan at the moment is importing close to 18 million tons of coal for the cement and the brick kiln. So we have approached them and we figured out that even some kind of blending is done, then the scalability will definitely happen. Yet another very good news, again part of the Joint Cooperation Committee, that now we will be embarking onto very exciting development of Thar coal, which is Thar coal gasification, and from gasification to liquefaction. So if we do that, that is the silver lining for the sustainability of fertilizer industry in Pakistan. You know the gas crisis and what is happening. So the business case is that coal is going to be transported to the fertilizer plant where there is, and then they will just gasify that coal and use it for the fertilizer manufacturing. So that's there.
Thank you. Hassan, very quickly, briefly, because we need to take 1 or 2 more questions before we run out of time. Hassan, there was a question around the ADR.
Yes, yeah, but sir, you asked some excellent questions and you made some very valid points. Quickly, let me say this much. ADR is the future. We are already way behind the world. As I mentioned earlier, when it comes to any jurisdiction, the international investors are going to do a proper horizon scanning. They need to make sure that they are entering a jurisdiction where laws are enforced, arbitration awards are enforced, and courts do not assume jurisdiction on over agreements that parties have agreed to resolve through arbitration. So this is something which we need, for which we need, I believe, a legal revolution in Pakistan. And as we enter CPEC phase 2, as more investors come in Pakistan, we need to provide that ecosystem for the international investors to feel at home. I always say, make them feel at home. If you do that through having a robust set of laws that are enforced, then obviously you've given them the comfort. Whether it will happen or not, I can't comment on that.
Thank you, Hassan. A question, I think there's a gentleman with the mic there already. Yeah, please go ahead. And I'll come here later.
I'm Dr. Shujal Mubarak. I'm representing Institute of Business Management. My question to Khalid Mansoor Saab. Khalid Saab, in the government, a lot of governmental statements and documents, SMEs have been mentioned as the engine of growth. Even in the Planning Commission, it was mentioned that the SMEs, small and medium enterprises, are something to which we have to rely on. But once we look on the special economic zones and their structures, so normally there's a perception that SMEs have been completely ignored, especially in terms of the vendor firms and the vendor industries. So what is your take on it? And there is another question, very quick, that instead of giving the amnesty to the real estate sector, why not giving amnesty to the investors to invest in the CPEC related projects? Thank you.
Well, you see, I'm really amazed what you said, but my personal experience is that when I visited M3 and Faisalabad Industrial City, there are 18 Chinese investors they are from SME. They are tile manufacturer, they are, the agriculture products, the washing powders and LED bulbs and so on and so forth. So if the business is going to be B2B, then there is no restriction. Although, there are, broad understanding that each and every special economic zone, what kind of industry is going to be there. But there is no restriction per se that if some investment is from SME and that supports the economy of the Pakistan, so there is no restriction, either from outside of Pakistan or within Pakistan. So there is nothing of that sort. No, not at all.
Compete in the business generally.
Absolutely not. And that's what I'm saying, that there are 18 and 20, such kind of companies, and they wanted to, manufacture tiles in Pakistan. So, this is something which makes sense to them, and there is no preferential treatment given to big kind of industry.
Thank you, Khalid sir. Yes. I'll come to you next. Please.
Thank you. So my question is with regards to, is there any planning with regards to new hubs and new cities as part of the whole CPEC thing? Yeah. And I would like to also touch upon the previous conversation, re-coal. Pakistan would like to touch upon just the conversation that happened earlier now, re-coal. So we are a net deficit country, and we've not really exploited the local one, but we are going towards importing more. So $1.2 billion was 2020's bill, and yesterday we were having a conversation with regards to the whole power sector and obviously the circular debt. So reliance on local should be more, of course, but we don't really see that much.
Ira, you remember what I mentioned? That, I am one of the biggest practitioner or proponent of Tharcoal, and this is, it's just nothing but the scalability. One exercise which has already been started, that we are encouraging the existing imported coal-based power project to now do the test run whereby how much they can blend the coal. But you need to have the lifeline, which is the rail. And that's why you see this project. And by the way, the good news is that we have established a business case. It is absolutely economically viable with a very little VGF, very little. So only yesterday, I concluded, and we will be taking that to the Planning Commission. So that was the answer to your first question. And even you see the coal project, which is going to be the project which is under construction, at probably it's going to be Jamshoro. So the agreement is already there that at 20% they will be using the local coal. So more and more is going to be done, but it all depends, because when the decision was taken, only limited projects will be allowed to use the imported coal, because at that time there was no belief that we will be able to develop our own mine. So thereafter, the main thing is that now their equipment is there, so they can't 100% switch onto the imported coal. But based on the case study, I know from my personal experience that you see some potential is there for, blending of the local coal and then run those plants.
Thank you, Khalid sir. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Sorry?
Are there new cities?
Yeah. The new cities are going to be the one which is going to be the special economic zone, or the science and technology zone in Islamabad. It is really up and running. Yeah. The science and technology zone in Islamabad. So basically it's going to be, IT kind of related industry over there. Then there is another special economic zone in Islamabad. And then the one very attractive, which I am supporting very, very forcefully, that is going to be using 1,600 acres of land and very vicinity of Pakistan Steel Mill. So those are the kind of, new cities which are going to be there. But we need to focus on to the few one, so that we start to colonize them and then start to keep on building more and more as the industrialization will take place.
Thank you, Khalid sir. Please. And then I'll come to you.
I am Imran Zafar. I am heading a company which is related to energy systems, energy controls. So my question first, as I mentioned, in 2003, we have a power shortage. So whatever thinkers you have done, that we have arranged on ad hoc basis, availability of power, and then we come up solution for load shedding. But in 2020, we discussed yesterday that we have a problem, surplus power. So we did not have power, now we cannot utilize that power. My question is little bit different because this is a future summit. We are discussing common man problem. Common man, our Prime Minister said we have to remove poverty. All the discussion we have today, tomorrow about common man, how to alleviate poverty, how to improve standard of living. All the pharmaceuticals, everything, education, they are doing everything to improve common man life. And common man do not understand any economic terms.
What is the question?
I'm just coming. So common man doesn't understand things. So what you have decided, you said, okay, in order to improve common man life, you have to have exports. What is the conclusion of today's discussion? We need exports. I'm just coming. My question is, you need export. In your export, you have industry. For industry, you need funding. For funding, we are promoting, as you also mentioned, that we have cheap labor available. In USA, all the industry shifted to China because labor was cheap. My question is, today we attract funding because our labor is cheap. On other hand, we improve poverty. My question is, there will be future arrive when we improve poverty, but we don't have cheap labor. So my question is, our thinkers, same situation arrive in power sector, then we kill one problem, but we create another problem. So what our leaders and thinkers are thinking, today we are attracting because of cheap labor, but this cheap labor will not become cheap because when we improve their standard of living. Okay. So what alternative we have in future when
Can we have a question, guys?
My question is, we today attracting...
It's a cheap labor versus when we are economically developed, it will become
yes.
expensive.
So,
okay, got the question.
So how do you counter this problem?
Got the question, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
You see, it is all about evolution, my friend. That at the moment you have to leverage whatever is the competitive edge of Pakistan. Because whenever you develop a business case, you have to see that what is the competitive advantage. So industrialization creates a 7x trickling effect, and that is going to be providing a huge opportunities. So what happened in China? China has not reduced the employment opportunities, but they have transited from labor-intensive industry to the high-tech industry. And now those people are getting, more benefit, their salaries are more, and so on and so forth. But we have to first of all look at the short term and the medium term. At the moment, the only solution to really transform our economy is industrialization period. So which will do three things. A, it is going to be substituting the import, it is going to be significantly export orientation and huge employment opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. So we can have a question.
This is Dr. Afaq Qazi. I'm from Institute of Business Management. Again, I 100% agree that we should have we should do work on ease of doing business. Yes. We must have softened the laws. Yes. To align our laws with international laws, and we must respect. But my question is, as a Pakistani, and that is also the problem of the present political regime, that unfortunately, if we see the political agreements and treaties concluded with the political regimes, somehow they compromised and ignored the national interest. One is like in the yesterday's session, IIB, and there's a lot of RODREC and many examples. So my very pertinent question is that Imran Khan is also, of course, propagating on this. So what is the safeguard? We must have to keep some buffer in case some agreement, national agreement is concluded where there is some compromise on national interest. So we must have some buffer in the future legislation. Thank you very much.
So your question is for Hassan in terms of the legislation.
And my question is both, Mr. Hassan, how to maintain a buffer when the political regimes has concluded and similarly how the political regime will manage this challenge.
Okay. Firstly, this is a political question, it's not a legal question. Let me say this. We have to trust the decision makers who are entering into these contracts. I believe they are having the best interest of the nation at heart. And if they are giving any concessions or what looks like concessions to us may not be concessions, this may be their long-term vision and their vision and foresight for Pakistan. So let's have faith in the system and let's not question things that we hear because we get certain news from the media. So I think that would be my view. In terms of law, I've explained this earlier, that we have to make sure that all the bases are covered from a legal perspective, the drafting, the negotiation, the dispute resolution. But this, to answer your question, yes, we have to have some faith in the system.
Thank you, Hassan. Let me take another question, yeah. And please, can we have a mic with the gentleman? Okay, please, lady first.
So my name is Nosheen Ahmed. I'm a corporate and commercial lawyer. I'm also an accredited mediator and master trainer, and it was extremely heartening for me, Hassan, to hear your comments vis-a-vis mediation, because we have been working on this issue in Pakistan since 2006. So this is not a question, it's just a comment and a point of information that we have a very nascent initial framework for mediation now in Pakistan. The Civil Procedure Code, at least in Sindh, has been amended to allow for mediation as a method of dispute resolution. So the ADR that you're talking about is already here. And essentially, the Sindh High Court is referring cases to mediation, or if you want to mediate and you want to bring it back to the Sindh High Court to make it an award of the court, they are accepting that also. So it's a good step forward. It's not the comprehensive framework that you're talking about, but since I have the mic and I have the floor and you've made some amazing points, and Khalid Mansoor Saab is here as well, what I'd like to say to business people is, as Hassan has recommended, put those mediation clauses into your contracts. And the IBA has started a dispute resolution forum. It's called IBA DRF, and they are in a position to mediate commercial disputes. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, madam. Thank you for bringing it up. And
I had no idea about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have a last question here.
My name is Rashid Jan Muhammad. I mostly handle the marine side at Port Qasim. My question to Mansoor Saab is that while you are operating the BRI under CPEC, can we include the maritime infrastructure under CPEC? Because I always believe that the corridor to enter Pakistan are our ports, and our ports are lacking too much in the infrastructure. Thank you.
Hey, Jan Saab, you raised that question when I made a detailed deliberation at OICCI. So I have taken the note of that, and we are really focusing how that choking at Port Qasim and KPT could be alleviated.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are trying to see that how the transportation business could be enhanced at Gwadar itself.
Mansoor bhai, only one comment. I fully respect, you did tell me same thing. Why I'm repeating here, this is a very good forum and we got a lot of authorities sitting here. You see, if you put your money in the maritime infrastructure, you have the product available. But here we are putting the investment where the product is not available.
Understood.
So I think there's a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your question and participation. We have to end this session right now. But we do understand that there are a lot of questions and the different aspect of the CPEC or BRI people would like to explore. Today we have explored the integration of the legal system and the framework across the different jurisdictions. We also discussed the CPEC as a part of the flagship project of BRI. But this is not the responsibility of the country alone, or of the government alone. I think the phase 2 where we are entering is all about the industrialization and the agriculture. And that's not the domain of government. That's mean a lot of corporate leaders have to step up and come forward and create those joint venture, become a part of consultation, provide some input, and create those partnerships which can bring that kind of businesses or industrialization or innovation in the agriculture through those opportunities which exist out there under the CPEC framework. So, and the one point which I would like to highlight here, it's not only the business side. I think there's a lot more required in terms of the talent development which is required to really take it forward. So I think that's also the universities and the regulator have to start looking into that. So thank you very much. Thank you, Khalid Saab. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, audience. I think that was a great session, a great participation, so thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Sajid Saab. May I request our panel to stay with us, and we'd like to give them a token of our appreciation. This was all music to our ears, but as they say, the opera doesn't end till the old lady sings. So I'm here to put an end to the conversations and very insightful questions. Khalid Saab, I'm sure you would love the fact that a lot of our commentators, a lot of people who had questions, they think policy making is very commonsensical. And the pressure is there, why isn't it being done? But interactive and a very interesting interaction. Thank you all for being here. May I take this opportunity to invite Air Chief Marshal Suhail Aman Saab and Rabia Ahmed Saiba from the Nutshell Group to please join us up on stage. To do the honors and give away our token of appreciation to our distinguished panel, may I take this opportunity of inviting the President of the Institute of Business Management and the Management Association of Pakistan, Janab Talib S. Kareem Saab, to please come up on stage. Talib Saab, बहुत शुक्रिया for being here. May I request you to present a book to Hassan Aslam Shah Sahab, the Legal Director at CMS Cameron, McKenna, Nabaru and Allswant LLP. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our speaker, Mr. Hassan Aslam Shah. And of course, a very comprehensive and enlightening presentation about the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor by our very special Assistant to the Prime Minister on CPEC Affairs and Minister of State. We are very grateful for his presence, Khalid Mansoor Sahab. And what a vibrant, fast-moving, well-moderated session it was, ladies and gentlemen. Our moderator, the head of public sector at ACCA, Sajid Aslam Sahab. May I also take this opportunity to invite Mr. Asfar Ehsan for a group photograph with our entire panel. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chairman of Board of Investment and one of the founders of the Future Summit, Mr. Asfar Ehsan.
I want to say something. Khalid Mansoor is my elder brother actually. And he is 1 year older than me. Now you are happy? So we worked together in the private sector earlier when he was part of Angro, followed by HUPCO. And also we worked together when he was the President of Overseas Investor Chambers of Commerce Industry. Now he is actually the representative of our corporate and business sector in Islamabad and the right person for a very tough job. I also joined Board of Investment almost 7 weeks back. And we are in close interaction. We are attending meetings together with the Prime Minister and several other ministries. And what is my observation? A very honest observation and a critical observation also, that he is doing outstanding work and he is doing very hard work. And he is trying his best, to revive this CPEC and, avail the opportunities. What is my message to all of you, to the corporate sector of Pakistan, is to support him and all others who are from the private sector, including me also, of course, to uplift the country. Because this is not his success only, this is country's success. There's a huge opportunity for CPEC, but there is a need of, avail this opportunity at the right time. So we should support CPEC Authority, Khalid Mansoor, and all those individuals who are working from the private sector in Islamabad. So this is only my message to all of you, and this is my observation.
Thank you, Asfar, for those enlightening words. And indeed, supporting the policymakers and supporting people with a vision is our only way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our entire panel. Thank you very much. May I only request Sajid and Talib Saab to stay back, please? Ladies and gentlemen, we head right into our next conversation. This is about demand-driven education for a diverse workplace. Of course, as we look towards the future, it's really important to continue having the advantage. One of the questions in this session was how, our labor, our human capital is basically Pakistan's biggest asset. Indeed, we are the fifth largest, population-wise, the fifth largest country, and this is a very youthful population that we have. More than 70% of our population is under the age of 30 years, and it's a huge dividend. While the rest of the world is grappling with an aging population, with a declining population, how best can we make use of our human capital? Of course, their training, their skill development is going to be critical, and that brings our focus to academia. Whenever we have a certain focus on a certain industry, are we preparing our young people to take on the roles and the jobs and the responsibilities that that would create? With us, of course, may I request the gentleman to take a seat, because you'll be seated right there. Our next session is also going to be moderated by the Head of Public Sector ACCA, Sajid Aslam. We have entrusted Sajid with two of the most powerful sessions in this conversation at the Future Summit, and he has very kindly agreed to do that. Thank you very much for that, Sajid. And of course, in this panel, one of the foremost business schools of Pakistan, who now offer a diverse range of qualifications and studies, absolutely an alma mater to some of the best minds. And now, since the institute has been around for many years, you see the graduates very swiftly climbing up the ladder. But of course, the onus still remains. How do you actually continue building this bridge and preparing the future generations? Ladies and gentlemen, also joining in this session, may I invite our next speaker, Mr. Asad Ali Shah, who's a member of the policy group at the SSCP as well. Thank you, Asad Saab. A very keen eye on the developments in the economy and the policy affairs. He usually is the first one to respond to any of my segments where I have been brutal and bold with my questioning. So thank you so much, Asad Saab. Really expecting the same from you in the panel as well. Sajid, I'll leave it up to you. Our panelists are, of course, prepared to give an address, but if you'd like it to be an interactive conversation, that's up to you. So over to you.
Thank you, Sitra. Thank you. So thank you very much for joining today as well, Talib Saab and Asad Saab. I think we will try to keep it more interactive. We have got 20-25 minutes to take it forward. We might be able to take 2 questions, so be very prepared and for the question, not the comment, but prepare for the question as well. So just opening up the forum, I think whenever we talk about the demand-driven education and we talk about the diverse workforce, so the first question comes is how we are going to determine demand in such an uncertain world, and which is such a connected one. That's the first thing. And number 2, demand for what? For the country, for the region, or we are looking at the global one? So I think these are the questions which I'll start with you, Talib Saab, and I'll come to you, Asad Saab, as well.
Thank you, Sajid. I think I'm grateful to Asfar for inviting me, and I think this is the 5th year of this summit, and I think 5th year of our partnership with Nutshell. So we are always very pleased to be part of this forum. I think if we look at what the future holds for the workforce and how educational institutions can meet those challenges, I think we need to just go back to 2020 when COVID came upon us in March of 2020, and we were asked to shut down our campuses. So what we were looking at the future as our strategy to be more online, to be more virtual, maybe 5 years down the road, it came upon us in 2020, and all of us were basically asked to be virtual. And the challenge was taken in good stride, and I think our faculty members and students especially were able to meet those challenges, and we conducted for almost a year and a half classes virtually and online. Now the reason I'm saying that is that disruption can come anytime, and future, what will happen in next 10 years or 15 years is very difficult to predict. But there are trends where we can see what future holds for all of us. And I think the most important trend is, of course, technology, and that how we can adapt to technology and also make sure that we are well equipped, our students, once they go out in the market, are well equipped in terms of technology, and those who are working in the organization are also ready to go back and relearn what they have learned initially in schools and universities. Future, we can talk about that, but technology is one of the tools that we have to adapt.
Thank you, Talib Sahab. I think we will come back again. So the technology and the reskilling of the current workforce towards technology is a one theme. So Asad Sahab, how we are going to determine the demand, and it should be regional, country level, and we just discussed in a CPEC, they are talking about if they want to create a special economic zone, they want to create a colony, and they want to create a talent for that specific industry within Pakistan. Yeah. So Talib Sahab also mentioned the demand, so who should be determining that demand and guiding the country as well?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Sajid, and thank you for inviting me in this session. I think I just came here as a participant, but I understand Aisha Aziz, who was supposed to be here, was not able to make it. So, education is something that I've been working on, and so I'm delighted to be part of this panel. And I must congratulate the topic that you have included, the demand-driven education. Now, I think we need to understand what is demand-driven education. Simple, education which has high demand. That to me is a common sense answer. And that is, in fact, one of the biggest problems in this country. First of all, I think our biggest problem is that very large number of our children do not go to school. Almost 40% of the population, not going to children not going to school. Literacy rate is very low. So our basic education has huge problems. Second aspect is that most of the educational institutions that we have, in the form of public sector universities especially, the quality of education, and also I think from the demand perspective, they are not creating the labor force that is required of this world, in this world. You see, we have to understand that today we are sitting in a world where 5 billion people are connected. It's a connected world. When we were trained in, boomers as you call it, people who were trained in 80s or 70s, obviously it was a different world, So our education system still is largely manual based. It is still 18th, 19th century system. So neither our system is catering to the demand, nor the topics that we are discussing and the manner that we are educating is actually catering to the demand. So it's not very difficult to understand what is the demand. Demand is, and actually when we are talking about demand, obviously in earlier session, Khalid Mansoor talked about the possibility of, setting up chip manufacturing, and, so that is one area where the demand is. But the point is, it's not just what is the manufacturing and industry in Pakistan. Today, the opportunity is that if you create the right skills which have demand, our people can be employed, they can serve not just the Pakistani manufacturing sector or the business or commerce, they can actually service the entire world. They can serve, people in the US, the large companies. They can serve Chinese, they can serve, engineering, technology, all sectors, sitting here. And that is what the COVID has done. I mean, the virtual kind of service delivery has remote work, and it's now hybrid and virtual world. So I think what is required, and who has to do it? And this is where the policy making comes in. Unfortunately, our policy making, as far as education is concerned, remains, I have to say, dysfunctional. The HECs of this world and the education departments, they are in a different world. They are not in 21st century. They are not recognizing the opportunity which is available today if we just, but then it requires a huge shift. We need to totally reinvent our universities. We need to, I think, move towards skill-based education. I mean, we all know that despite Pakistan, we have so many problems, the balance of payments problems, etc., and our exports have not been rising. Now, the biggest item that where there is, which is the foreign exchange earner also, where the highest increase is the service IT sector, 40-50% increase. And the opportunity there is really, I also say that we are living in an exponential world. Our people still are, unfortunately, we still thinking in terms of 10% growth, 12% growth. Whereas these, technology firms and these startup companies, they think in terms of how many times growth, So if we actually get into the right policy and get into these 21st century skills, I think our growth in terms of developing the human resource and in terms of getting the export of services could be exponential. It could be 500%.
So thank you very much. I think where we are alluding towards, it's a non-linear thought process, number one. The policymaker, like we have seen a model in US, very interesting one, where they integrate their planning of the economic plans and then they work it backward for the next 30, 40 years and what kind of skills or competencies they are required. But I think the most important thing which you picked up is the non-linear thought process, that we should not stick with that linear 10%, 5% growth or a linear progression class 10वीं की और फिर 12वीं की और फिर 14वीं की और फिर masters कर लिया. I think we have to bring those kind of structures where people can, after matric or A-level or O-level, they can really go for the competencies and skill and start working within Pakistan rather than going for the linear progression the way we used to do that. So तालिब साहब आपसे एक सवाल दोबारा उसी साइड पे आते हैं जो अभी हमने बात की. Policy maker is a one part and Education Institute is another one, because they have got their own research which guide the policy maker that what to do. So if we are looking at the Education Institute or the universities like yourself, how your university is determining that demand and doing that R&D and converting that into the program which can help the young generation, upcoming generation one, and the other question you raised, that the reskilling the existing workforce to stay relevant. So how you deploy that process?
I think, as I've said initially, that the whole world, whether we look at globally or we look at locally, is now a technology-driven world. And as a university, we need to bring within our curriculum or within our degree programs those type of specialization which can help these youngsters to adjust themselves, whether they're in Pakistan or globally. Now, if you look at just the IT industry itself, and if you look at the neighboring country where they're exporting about 150 billion worth of software, as compared to that, we are at 2 billion. And we are sitting at the biggest resource that one can ask for, and that is the youth population. I think over 40% of our population comprises of youth, but unfortunately, as Asad Saab said, that almost 24 million of school-going children who should be going to school are not in school. So we are basically missing out in that resource that we need to take advantage of. One other point is that we always talk about tertiary level education. I think one point that policymakers need to think upon is more of skilled labor, which Khalid Mansoor Saab also mentioned, that their requirement for CPEC is about 100,000 skilled workers in the next few years. Are we policymakers or us, are we spending enough resource in vocational training and skill type training? Yes, there are some programs by this current government and by the previous government in order to enhance that, but I think we need to do more in terms of doing that. Unfortunately, if there are parents sitting here who have school or university, about to go to the university, I think we tend to, and this is not just in Pakistan, it's a very global type of phenomena, that we tend to look at the current scenario and we ask our kids to go for BBA or for these type of programs, which maybe there's a requirement in the current market. We are not looking at the future, that what will happen after 5 years or what will happen after 10 years. For example, we offered, or we are offering 2 programs. One is in data sciences, a bachelor's program, and one is in technology management. But compared to those BBA and other popular programs, these programs are not attracting as many candidates as they should. Because by the time candidates graduate, the whole world will be a different world. It will be a technology-based world. We are fortunate with one other thing, is that with Generation Z, Gen Z, and with millennials, I think they are equipped in terms of technology. I mean, I have a 3-year-old granddaughter who, can take the phone, an iPhone or a smartphone, and switch on to Netflix and watch a cartoon. Right now, she's attending her school online by sitting in front of the laptop. So we have these type of kids who are in the workforce now because they are in their 20s and they are part of our universities also. So I think we need to adapt to their needs and try to equip them in terms of those type of thinking which can make them more adjustable to the scenario in Pakistan and globally. We cannot really, this is a global village, and we cannot really prepare them just for Pakistan. We need to prepare them for the...
Thank you, Talib Sahab. And Aisha Aziz also contributing through the technology, and she made one comment, interesting one. In such a situation, we best, like in our current situation, the best we can do is to have an education that contributes to the development of our cognitive ability in a holistic sense. This will equip us to deal with both what changes and what stay the same, what is fleeting and what is the part of the deep pattern. With the issue of diversity too, that's also something which we can start working towards the human development and not only the education skill and training, because the skill may be obsolete, but that cognitive ability which should be developed at a very early stage schooling, that will stay there and that will help people to really work in all situations and to deal with all the uncertainty. I think given the time, we would like to take 2 questions from the audience as well. If anybody has got a question, please. Okay, what's up? So मैं आपको 1 minute end में दे रहा हूँ, just for the closing. 1 minute for you, 1 minute. Question, Ji. Sir, state your name and organization.
Thank you very much. I think it's too late now, but nevertheless, my name is Aftab Bhatt, and I work for Kota Power Company. Thank you very much. I think it's an extremely, extremely important topic that you guys are discussing, and I know Shah Saab and gentlemen are working very hard on it. The new word, I think the buzzword is this skill-based, and we were talking about future and working back. The hard luck, unfortunate part is that we are not embracing the future, and we are keeping our eyes closed that, the degree base, even now, like it's been stated that, we are still going for education per way. The degree, no, the future is not. Even we were talking in our CA, ICAP, that this qualification is going to get redundant in some time future. So maybe you're right, and I think have you taken the right step. So what tangible step that government should take? I mean, we have heard about SNC, and we have heard about the criticism on it. There are good part to it, and there are debatable or improvement part to it. Can you both gentlemen talk about how it can actually really improve the skill set or the educational level and diversity as well in Pakistan?
If I may. Thank you, Aftab. I think it's a very, very critical question, and I think the first thing, let me give you an example what I want to say. अभी आपने पहले फ्यूचर की बात की ना कि we are not, आपने भी ये बात की कि हम अभी पास्ट में ही रह रहे हैं, and we are not even imagining what is future. It's a very interesting story that when Israel's first prime minister, and I give this example, Israel is also like, I know a lot of people may have apprehensions, but Israel and Pakistan have some very great similarities. Both countries created on the basis of religion. Both countries around the same time. We were created in 47, 48. Both are surrounded by huge enemy, right? Both are military nations. Yet Israel is the best example of entrepreneurship. $45,000 per capita income. Hum $1,500 pay. So obviously we have to learn. कहते हैं ना कि दुश्मनों से भी सीखना चाहिए. तो first prime minister जो उनके थे, when he was forming a cabinet, so he was looking for people, and then experts of different fields, and he got a list कि जी agriculture का फलाना expert है, फलाना science का है, इस चीज़ का different experts उनको list भेजी गई. So he said, look, the list that you have given me, these are the experts of the past. I'm looking for experts of the future. So problem ये है कि इस मुल्क में हमने सारे जो past के हम मेरे जैसे more than 60-year-old जो है ना, we are totally relying on the old thinking, people who have done well. Okay, they may have done well, but most of us, including myself, I think we are not really current with what is happening in the world. अब ये देखें दुनिया में ये जो दुनिया change की है, these are all young people who did this. I mean, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, ये अपनी 20s age में, 25 age में जो है ना, they did amazing, outstanding things. दुनिया की इतनी बड़ी कंपनियां बना दी हैं. They were not, experts in anything. So they were just challenging these existing norms. They were bold. They were questioning things. असल problem हमारे माशरे का ये है कि we are a compliant culture. In our culture, the person, the chief executive is everything in an organization. Family में सबसे बड़ा जो senior है, he or she is everything. Army chief जो है हमारी आर्मी में, वो वहाँ से पावर फ्लो करता है, प्राइम मिनिस्टर गवर्नमेंट से उनका फ्लो करता है. मतलब ब्यूरोक्रेसी में जो यंग लोग हैं ना, उनको हम फोकस नहीं करते, उनको हम इनकरेज नहीं करते. यहाँ पर हमारे स्कूलों में क्वेश्चंस, सवाल पूछने वालों को जो है ना, हम इनकरेज नहीं करते, उनको बल्कि डांटते हैं. तो सवाल ये है, अगर हमने अपने माशरे को चेंज करना है, वी हैव टू चेंज, जो आप कॉग्निशन की बात कर रहे थे, we have to encourage more questions. We have to encourage more debate, and we have to encourage rebellion, really, not compliance. So I think one of the worst things that has happened in our culture is this compliance culture. So we have to bring new people, who have out-of-box thinking and not experts of the past.
Thank you, Asad. And coming from you as a policy board member of SECP and a professional accountant, promoting non-compliance It's definitely something we would appreciate, but that's
I'm
what...
not talking about non-compliance of the law. I'm talking about non-compliance of our,
the comfort zones and all that. Yeah, no, exactly. So I think that's what Aisha also mentioned, the cognitive abilities. We are talking about the non-linear parts as well. And I think that's the non-linear thought process which will really break those hierarchies and let the young people really promote and project what they think and challenge that one rather than complying with the existing comfort zones of people. So tangible contribution from your, okay.
You know what it means when I'm...
Yeah, you're the... No, thank you, then we can thank and... So thank you very much. I think we were running quite short on the time side, so we will continue the conversation during the lunchtime, I hope. People are still here, we are here. So I think this is an important topic, and we would like that the online content which exists out there, please do engage with that content and leave your comments and the question there, so we hope that we can build some conversation engagement there.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Sandra.
so much for that, Sajid. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our very able panel. And before we close this one, may I once again request Air Chief Marshal Suhail Aman Sahab to please join us up on stage. And Rabia, if you are in, yes, there you are. Rabia Ahmed, also from the Nutshell Group, to please join us up on stage, as we'd like to present this able panel with a token of our appreciation that will go with them. And to do this honor, may I request Dr. Shahid Mahmood, the Chairman and the CEO of Interactive Group, to please join us up on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, the first book is to be presented to the President of the IUBM. May I request Mr. Talib S. Kareem to accept this. Dr. Shahid Mahmood, the Chairman and CEO of Interactive Group, is presenting this one. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, may I request Mr. Asad Ali Shah to please step forward and accept this. It's a small token of our appreciation for his valuable input and time. Last but definitely not the least, may I request our moderator, Sajid Aslam, the Head of Public Sector, ACCA, to please step forward. Thank you, gentlemen. May I request you all to come together for a group photograph. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been our endeavor in the last 2 days to try and imagine what the unimaginable is. And definitely that will be the perfect tone to sort of bring this 2-day Future Summit, the 5th edition of the Future Summit, to a closing. Our theme for our closing ceremony is to imagine the unimaginable. And whenever we say the unimaginable, it doesn't necessarily have to be tinged with negativity. All great things, all dreams that manifest were first dreamt of in our minds. And for this, ladies and gentlemen, as our closing keynote speaker, may I take this opportunity to invite the Chairman and CEO of Interactive Group, Dr. Shahid Mahmood, to please speak at the occasion.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen, and a very good afternoon. I know I am the last speaker before lunch. I'm sure there are 2 more speakers after me to conclude this session. But the challenge that I was given, and first of all, before I move anywhere into my topic, imagining the unimaginable, I must congratulate Nutshell and Martin Dow, the platinum sponsors, the gold sponsors, and the silver knowledge partners, academic partners, for making this Future Summit a consistent 5-year effort. I think this in itself says a lot, that as a nation and as a corporate entity, we are moving in the right direction, that we are consistently meeting to talk about the future. And that is what makes my life much easier when I say imagining the unimaginable. So let me start with a very simple statement. We have completed, or we are in our 75th year as a nation. Alhamdulillah, we've come a long way. We have struggled, we have seen where the world is going. In the next 3 years, hopefully at every Nutshell conference, talking about the future, we should be crafting our way to the next 75 years. It is 78 years till we hit 2100. That is the 22nd century that will start. And by saying what we can imagine, I believe, as a Pakistani, and I believe being in the technology world and whatever I've seen and experienced in my life, that I can say with confidence, and it will all depend on each one of you sitting in this room, how we achieve this, that we will be the 5th economy of the world, inshallah, in the next 78 years. And I would like to prove it to you why I say this. The sessions that you've heard, the 9 sessions, they have practically covered all key areas. The key areas being, where are we living? How many of us are living? What are we doing on this planet? Where is the economic state? Where is the well-being of the people that are living here? And obviously, knowledge that is driving it. And this is where I think it was very ably done by all the participants that have spoken before me, and I have covered the areas. But now let me take you to the new imagination. It's not imagination, because when a person like me who loves foresight work talks about it, we are trained to look at our hindsight, which is the years that we have progressed, and it is to do foresight work, you then have to have the insight and the knowledge to be able to say things that you believe can happen. And I say this with 37 years of my background in technology. For all the praise or not praise, my signature it was, I think, the 19th of October, 1989, the first mobile Paktel has my signature as the shareholder director and putting mobile phones in this country's map. Also bringing satellite to this country and satellite communications. And so on, we've progressed and we've done well. But why I say this is just to build confidence in what I'm saying is based on my experiences. It took the world 250,000 years to become 1 billion people. 250,000 years, and the first 1 billion people were on the face of the earth. Then it took another 100 years, and we added another 1 billion. Then it took 33 years, and we added another 1 billion. Same earth, same resources, same everything, but the pace, 250,000 years, 100 years, 33 years. Now we are adding 1 billion people every 10 years. This is something we all need to understand today if we are to talk about the future, if we are to talk about the imaginable. If we don't, then we will remain in the realms of unimaginable, because this is something that history is teaching us. And when I say we will be, inshallah, the 5th economic power of the world, I say this with confidence because when you look at the numbers, it will be our default as Pakistanis, as heads of the corporate sector, as government, that we do not encash on something that was so visible and within our reach. The world in 2100 will be very different. And Allah Ta'ala has been very kind to us that we are globally positioned with some amazing neighbors. China, we all heard about the CPEC route, is one. Thousands of years of civilization and understanding of humans. Iran being another one, which has thousands of years of civilization and understanding of the human race. India, on the other hand, is another one. While we are positioned, and with Afghanistan, who are the most resilient nation in the world, and I think the world has seen that again and again, we are positioned in such a way that we now form another bridge. When we were talking about CPEC, I was talking in my head that we will be instrumental, and this will be the first step towards that, instrumental in being the bridge between Asia and Africa. Because Allah Ta'ala has been kind to us that we are fundamentally positioned in such a way that we will become this bridge. And when I talk about this bridge, in the year 2100, 40% of the world will be living in Africa, and 42% of the world will be living in Asia. The entire North and South America will be 4%. The entire 27 countries of the EU will be 6%. 10% world population base in what we are focusing today as the technology experts and the Western experts. What is more interesting, and my take on CPEC in a different way, is we are going to be that nation that China will depend on. And when I say this, please don't take me wrong, because we have to work hard to gain that respect. But why will we position ourselves in that way is very simple. China's number 1 competitor in the world is India. India in 2100 will still be able to maintain its 1.02 billion population. Whereas China, unfortunately, because of a policy mistake they made, is going to be 750 million people. It is going to halve its population base in the next 78 years. It will seriously require skilled manpower, the last session that we had. The country that will be number 2 in the world from a population standpoint is Nigeria. And in the top 10 countries of the world, you will be shocked to know who are the 5, and that is what makes me confident that if we cannot compete with those 5, then Pakistan is just cutting a sorry figure. The 5 countries that add to the top 10 list, number 1 is India, number 2 is Nigeria, number 3 is China, number 4 is the US, number 5 is Pakistan. Number 6 is the Democratic Republic of Congo. Then comes Indonesia, then comes countries like Egypt, Ethiopia. If we are in any way, from an education standpoint, from a skill standpoint, from an experience standpoint, from the community of our neighbors standpoint, if we are not capable to compete with that, I cannot say more, but that we did not even try and run the race. Because if we ran the race, and we will run the race, inshallah, we will be able to position ourselves correctly. When you look at these dynamics, and you look at what's going to happen, the trade where skills have already been developed, the way the Chinese developed their clusters and how they've managed to get all their expertise and why the One Belt, One Road is basically to make sure that what they do on e-commerce platforms as Alibaba or Pinduoduo and other so many of their platforms that they have, they are pushing economy manufactured across these logistic routes into the world. While it is doing that, it is also going to go down in manpower. And this is where Pakistan's second most critical opportunity comes up. We have a 1,001 kilometer coastal line which has a potential of several ports. The ones that are operational are Gwadar, Karachi, and Port Qasim. But there is Ormara, there is Pasni, there is Javani. We can even build something in KT Bandar. This opportunity in itself is also currently showing to the world where the new knowledge base and economy is going to be driven. It's very simple. Who are the top 10 companies in the world and how are they being driven? They're all tech companies. Tech companies require manpower. Chinese, if they have to compete in this tech world, also will require manpower. It takes about 15,000 RMB to get a third-tier city coder in China today. That same coder can be made available and is available in Pakistan for 1,500 RMB. The differential, if they want to continue to be the economic power, comes in that. And we can very easily see what is happening. Currently, there are 6 submarine cables that are landing on the shores of Pakistan. And there are 3 more. So 9 submarine cables landing. The CPEC route already has 850 kilometers of optical fiber laid. There is another M1 which will have more fiber capacity. So fiber pulling from the coast of Pakistan up into the western province is, in my opinion, a far greater opportunity. I do not want to point fingers at anybody, but I did a rough calculation, and I'll be more than happy that we further improve that number because I may be wrong. That all the exclusive economic zones that we will put together will be able to give us 5.4 million jobs. Whereas today, we need 27 million jobs. It is the freelancers who are earning 54,000 rupees today in the digital mindset that acquire only 2 things. And that, again, we are God-gifted. One is low-cost energy, because 36% of the cost is energy. And the other one is broadband, connectivity. Today, we so-called claim our fame to having 160, 170 million mobile users. A mobile user and the mobile data bandwidth that you get is about 10 MB, which in the 4th industrial revolution is ridiculous. If you want to be successful in the 4th industrial revolution in technologies of today, and you want to equip your younger generation and the youth, you have to give them a minimum of 100 to 200 megabits. We are very fortunate that we have not only the optical fibers coming in that will give us connectivity in the areas that we will go into, but then we have Elon Musk doing his trick with the Starlight program, because Pakistan, if you look at it from a terrain standpoint, 40% is in an area where you cannot lay fiber. So for that 40% to encash on the population base, because we will remain, geographical boundaries will remain the same, to encash on that, we then need that connectivity. And that connectivity and speed is what is going to revolutionize the world. So solar, wind, energy based out of nuclear. I don't know why we are so shy of talking nuclear energy. Nuclear energy today has become 90% more safe than it was when it started. Majority of the countries in Europe are dependent on nuclear energy. We, being the only country, Muslim country in the world which has nuclear expertise, we need to encash on this so that when we don't have the solar cover, we have the nuclear power, we have the wind, and we have other alternate powers that are being built and are coming up. Cost of energy goes down, broadband comes in, the 40% that is not being covered, then encashes on the youth. As it was being said, that a 3-year-old can play with the iPad and learn faster than any one of us. It's true, because this is where their eyes are opening and this is where they're coming up. So when we look at the future, the family size will not be 6, the universal family size will be 2. Normal life expectancy will be about 73. So if we have these numbers, we know where we are positioned, and we have the capability of bridging ourselves as the Asia-Africa bridge, because the 5 countries that will be the most populous in the world in 2100, which is 78 years from now, are in Africa. And they would want to access the 2 major markets of the world. One is India, and one is China. If you take India and China together, that's approximately, out of the 9 billion population that we will have, the 2 billion. And these are markets you cannot ignore, including Pakistan, which will be around 300 million. You have to be able to position yourselves correctly. So we have to move beyond CPEC. Now CPEC, in my opinion, has given us that opportunity to redo things in the next 78 years that we have done as a mistake in the first 75. And I call that first mistake is, I frame it as the GT Road syndrome. When I call it the GT Road syndrome, it is along the GT Road, we urbanized ourselves. In the next 78 years, 70% of the world will live in urban cities. 70% of the world will live in urban cities. How we develop our urban cities, how we plan them, how we make them sustainable, how we take them to 1.5 tons of carbon footprint. We are increasing our carbon footprint, so we have to be very careful when we talk about industry and everything else, because industry will then take us to another game in 2030, and if we sort of cross over the robots and the AI and the technology, which I'm very familiar with, I can assure you low-cost jobs will not be done by humans, they will be done by robots. Because a robot will cost me less than 20,000 rupees, whereas the basic salary today declared by the government is 20,000. So it's always going to be challenging on who you bring in. But if you know where the world is going, if you know, and you just have to have that heart and imagine in yourselves, you can overcome the unimaginable. The unimaginable is not that we cannot be the fifth. It is that we do not have the desire or the passion or the understanding. And I think in this august house, we have all the requisite skill sets that just need to craft the way forward, knowing what is going to happen and where we need to position ourselves. The human body is an amazing future. When we talk about technology, I find it very fascinating. And this, I'm a student of history and future, and I love the subject. This is something that is unexplored. And why I'm sharing it with you is because we will be the fifth largest nation population-wise in the world. So we will have that resource base within us. The human body in itself can store more than 2.5 petabits of data at the human temperature. Technology today is doubling in storage, in speed, in processing at 12 months. But we have still not explored the human body and its potential as a storage device and as a processing device. The neurons in our brains work in a different way, and everybody's studying that, and we are coming with AI and neural networks. My PhD is in that, so when I talk to you about that, I'm talking with a very good understanding on where the human body is going and what we will be able to encash with nanotechnology and with other technologies. So if we have the resource, which is the raw material of the future, which is the humans and the population base, there is nothing stopping us from being the fifth most powerful nation of the world. We just have to believe in ourselves. And in that belief, I believe, when we talk about the future summits, we should keep crafting our way in understanding what is it that we did wrong in the past 75 years, what is it that as a collective we can do right for the next 75 years, and we should be able to improve on this year on year. And I must compliment Nutshell, Martin Dow, and all of those who sponsor and all of those who have taken time out to be here to talk about the future of Pakistan. Collective commitment will get us there. And with that, I would like to thank you all.
What an inspiring note to close. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request our team to please join Shahid Saab up on the stage, and we'd like to formally take that forward. May I request Air Chief Marshal Suhail Aman Saab to please take his seat on the head table. May I also request the Chairman of the Board of Investment, Mr. Aswar Ehsan, to please join us up here. May I also request Rabia Ahmed from the Nutshell Group to join us up on the head table, please. May I request you to please take your seats? Ladies and gentlemen, we've had 2 fantastic days of exploring different realms, different areas, industries, sectors, and try to sort of investigate what the future in each is looking like. We had the best thinkers, the best experts coming in together. So I believe it will be a mammoth task for our next speakers to sort of sum it up and to bring it all collectively together. But I'm going to draw from what Dr. Shahid said, that collective commitment is what is going to take us forward. Some of it may sound very overwhelming and daunting to us, but I think if we can just replace that fear with excitement, then there is so much more to look forward to. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, may I request the Honorable Minister of State and the Chairman of the Board of Investment, Mr. Muhammad Asfar Ehsan, to take the floor and express his thought at this occasion.
Thank you, Sidra. Since long, I was under the impression that both Rabia and Sidra are my very honest friends. But today I'm very doubtful about this honest friendship, because they placed me just after my guru, Dr. Shahid, and this is very difficult to address the August gathering here. But I am grateful to the organizers to provide me an opportunity to speak at this August gathering. I want to acknowledge the presence of Senator Dr. Musaddiq Malik, my very dear friend and brother, and his presentation was outclass like always. My dear friends, I recently joined Board of Investment as the Chairman and Minister of State. And I want to say with complete responsibility that despite all the odds, all the challenges, by each passing day, I'm more and more optimistic about the future of Pakistan. There are a lot of opportunities. There are huge opportunities. It's up to us to avail these opportunities and convert into reality. My dear friends, the business community played an important role in the economic development of the country as it creates economic activities. Government wants to the business community to grow businesses, make profit, and create wealth, as a nation cannot prosper without economic growth. The present government is focusing on improving the business climate for the private sector by adopting initiatives and policy measures aimed at, first, reducing the red tape and administrative procedures required to set up and run private firms. Second, introducing commercial courts for quick decisions. Third, improving competition and abating barriers to market entry by private enterprises. Fourth, providing better access to finance, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs. And fifth, improving overall corporate governance. Board of Investment has initiated various reforms to improve the overall investment climate and to attract foreign direct investment in the country. In addition, Board of Investment has approved 22 special economic zones all over Pakistan, which offers lucrative incentives to potential investors. The private sector is the engine of growth. Successful businesses drive growth, create jobs and investment. In developing countries, the private sector generates 90% of jobs, funds 60% of all investments, and provides more than 80% of government revenues. As a result of the investor-friendly policies of the present government and the economic turnaround achieved in the last 3 years, economic activities in the country increased manifolds. In an effort to make the regulatory environment friendly and amenable to investors, Board of Investment is leading the Pakistan Regulatory Modernization Initiative, PRMI, launched by the Honorable Prime Minister of Pakistan. It shall transform the regulatory landscape across all tiers of government, federal, provincial, and local. A PRMI digital portal has already been created, which contains real-time inventory of 550 registrations, licenses, certificates, and other permits. With such regulatory reforms in place, Board of Investment envisages a paradigm shift in the regulatory environment of the country. Our government has a vision for a prosperous and progressive Pakistan through export-led, labor-intensive industrialization. The economy has started picking up as economic indicators including foreign exchange reserves, current account balance, trade balance, and ease of doing business ranking are showing positive developments. My dear friends, Pakistan exports competitiveness is declining. The export profile is concentrated in terms of products and markets, and very few businesses are integrated in the global economy. Pakistan is currently the world's 7th most protected economy as measured by the overall trade restrictiveness index. Board of Investment also runs grievances resolution system to resolve the issues of investors and working to establish online public grievances queries addressing system to strengthen its public outreach. My dear friends, at Board of Investment, our doors are open for business community of Pakistan. Together we will work to bring investment in all sectors of economy, facilitate investors and ensure ease of business, improve Pakistan's international competitiveness and contribute to socio-economic developments. Recently we started the sectoral dialogues and engaging different sectors in the form of different small committees. And the reason of these engagements in different sectors is to understand the pain points of the industry and also to understand the investment leads. So we are working very closely for different sectors. Recently we hosted the Technology Roundtable last week in Islamabad, where we engaged all technology practitioners from all over Pakistan. Now we are meeting with them on a regular basis. Same we are doing with the engineering sector, pharmaceutical, and many other industries. We also established Pakistan-China Business and Investment Forum last week under the chair of Prime Minister Imran Khan. This is joint initiative of Board of Investment and all Pakistan Chinese Enterprises Association and Embassy of China in Pakistan. And through this forum, we are exploring the opportunities for joint ventures and collaboration, and we are facilitating both sides in cooperation with our embassy in China and China embassy in Pakistan to support the businesses to understand and to explore the opportunities in different sectors. We also hosted CPEC Industrial B2B Investment Conference recently in Lahore. This was the Punjab chapter. Before my joining of Board of Investment hosted the KPK chapter in March 2021, attended by over 50 Chinese investors and around 500 Pakistani businessmen. 2 weeks back when we hosted the Punjab chapter in Lahore, this was very well attended by over 600 delegates from all over Pakistan, especially the Punjab side, and also 70 Chinese investors. Now we are hosting one for Sindh, followed by Balochistan. So on China front, Board of Investment is facilitating both sides as far as the business establishment is concerned. And in our recent meeting with Ambassador Nongrong, who is Ambassador of China in Pakistan, we discussed about the possibilities and the line of action for outreach for maximum engagement of Chinese investors in Pakistan. As we entered in 2022, we welcome 2022 by declaring it a year of liberal and sustainable investor-friendly reforms to make Pakistan one of the most sought-after investment destinations in the region. At Board of Investment, under the visionary leadership of Prime Minister Imran Khan, we resolved to provide one-stop services to local and foreign investors in all the existing and new sectors to contribute in the sustainable economic development of Pakistan. My dear friends, in the end, let me conclude by saying that Pakistan of today is better than Pakistan of yesterday, as it stands on the verge of a momentum transformation. My government is fully committed to harness Pakistan's economy through business-friendly policies and a strategic vision. Board of Investment's objective remains the enhancement of investment and industrialization in order to achieve sustainable economic development in the country. We will work jointly to build a strong, stable, peaceful, and commercially vibrant and technology-driven Pakistan. Thank you. Pakistan Zindabad.
Thank you, Asfar, for so comprehensively outlining the vision. And of course, it's great news for the days to come. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the close of our two-day Future Summit, may I take this opportunity to invite Air Chief Marshal Sohail Aman Sahab for the closing address that will formally bring us to the close of the 5th edition and inshallah pave way for the years to come. Sohail Sahab.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, and this being the last address and only me between you and the lunch, I will try and make it within 10 minutes. I'm very thankful to Dr. Shahid Asfar for making my job easier by leaving the message of hope and positivity. And I think by the time we leave this hall today, I believe we'll all leave with this thought in our mind. I'm also reminded of Churchill. He wrote a letter to his journal and he said that I'm writing you a 2-page letter. I wish I had more time. I would have written you half-a-page letter. And actually that's the dilemma that I'm into, that I'll try, and whatever has happened since yesterday morning, when we started with the leadership and we began through technology, to agriculture, to climate change, to whatever, and I'm not going to pick up on each one of them and reiterate the whole thing, but I'll pick up the key points. And I think on the leadership, I was so inspired and happy to see that it all boiled down to the human resource. It all boiled down to how to take care of your people. It was about compassion. It was about empathy. And people truly understood that in the testing times, especially with the pandemic coming up, you need to be very considerate to your people. Then it was not only the people that they were really considerate about, they were looking at the systems, they were looking at innovation, and they're looking at how to empower their people. And I think the leadership sessions went absolutely stunning. While I may not be able to comment a lot on it, but I think the audience and the way we met on the tea and the lunch, you were all inspired, you were all happy about the whole thing. And one particular thing which came up here during the discussions was not on the stage, but was about the leadership's ability to stand behind the people in the testing times and take up all the pressures themselves. And somebody did say a very beautiful thing, and that was about leadership is like a tea bag. The leadership is like a tea bag, and you can only know its quality when put in the hot waters. It's so much defines. And the corporate leadership that I've really interacted since yesterday, the way you spoke about the technology, you have all the ability, and I leave very, very positively from this hall. About technology, I'm also reminded of a very small but very telling proverb, and that is, if you think education is expensive, try it otherwise. You're right there. And what I leave with today is that if you think that the technology is expensive, try otherwise. The way the transformation of IT and the digital economy, everything has come up. I've had one of the corporate leaders here who said, I go with the belief from here that it is an inescapable need. It ought to be done, and there are no two ways about it. We had the banking sector come in here, and I think the way for us to see, yes, the private banking would concentrate on the customer centricity and bringing the systems. But I think the point which moved here was the regulators' involvement into making sure that the accelerated process is accelerated further. So I think this is all very, very reassuring. All of this is very reassuring. Then we came up about the agriculture.
And I think on the agriculture also, the theme point remained about the technology. And I'm very glad to share with you that one of the previous Board of Investment Chairman, Naeem, who heads one of the organizations, they've started to bring out the technology into agriculture, where the small farmers are informed on a very routine basis about the weather, about the crops, about the fertilizer, everything. This information comes down to them absolutely free. Now, what a wonderful way of bringing the technology into everything. Climate change, Dr. Shamshad brought it to us. We're not the ones who contributed to the disaster which has happened with the climate. It was the World War II, it was the industrialization, which all brought it up there. But then look at the Kyoto Protocol and the way the Chinese addressed it. And they said, fine, we understand there's a problem at hand. We didn't do it, you did it. You fund the bill, and you need to. And I think that's where Ayla came up with a very thought-provoking idea. We need to regulate and institutionalize. We're the 5th country which is endangered by this. We'll have to face it. It's there. It's writing on the wall. Therefore, our government and our agencies will have to get into a place where they will start asking about remedies to the challenges which will come about because of the climate change. And I think that's absolutely a very precise point which came out about the future. And of course, Dr. Sadiq was absolutely great when he talked about the Star Trek. And I think that's where, whatever you cannot imagine, and yesterday I did make a small comment that in 2007, what the world's highest defense learning body thought, nothing of that kind happened in the next 10 years. That's what the future is. That's how unpredictable it is. But the journey that we started 5 years ago, and today what I see is that as long as you're marching in the right direction, that's okay. And why shouldn't we be proud of so many things? And that's my last take on this. Ask one particular country who fought, and the nation, who fought 20 years of terrorism, 110 billion loss of money, which is huge. I mean, a country like us, how could we take it? Over 60,000 people lost their lives, 6,000 soldiers, and over 20,000 lost their limbs. What a united way of fighting this. Look at those countries who were subject to terrorism in the Middle East, what has happened to them and where have they gone? I've been to the Middle East a few days back, and there are countries who lost their sovereignty, their fuel goes unmetered out, and their people live in absolute poverty. Even on the education, the single national curriculum, there is a big achievement. You brought in the curriculum, and of course the syllabi are accordingly devised. You brought in the value system into the whole thing. You brought the technical education. The point is implementation of what we've already planned. We're the 5th nuclear state with 220 million people, with such dynamism into the corporate sector, and the public sector is committed to go ahead and pave the way. What is important is that we must embrace positivity. We must put our share into the whole thing so that a bright future awaits us. Media is something which really needs to harness this positivity and then to bring it out there, because जो negativity की news है उसको फैलाना और उससे excitement create करना आसान है, positivity. And I think so many positive things that we saw in the last 2 days, and we were apprised that it's a lovely nation. And if we were to be born again, hypothetically, we would love to be Pakistanis, inshallah. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Suhail Aman. So this formally brings us to the end of the 2-day Future Summit. But before we close, we'd like to present our memento, which is the book that we've been presenting to all our dignitaries and all our delegates. Suhail Aman, Chief Executive Strategic Engagements, Nutshell Group. I'd request you to please present these mementos to our guests. Dr. Shahid Mahmood, please, Chairman, Interactive Group of Companies. Thank you very much, sir, for gracing us with your presence. Mohammad Asfar Ehsan Saab, Chairman Board of Investment and Minister of State, thank you very much. And last but definitely not the least, our brilliant summit moderator who brought in a lot of excitement, a lot of insight, Sidra Iqbal. Thank you, Sidra. Thank you very much. So now the only thing standing between all of you and lunch is me. So thank you very much, everybody. We're so heartened to see a completely packed hall even at the end of the second day of the summit. So enjoy your lunch. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next year. I forgot to announce the group photo. Yes.